know if you're on him.
Okay, yeah, I'm on him.
Those 260, you got it.
Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. Hope you're doing great today. It is getting near the end of application season. Today we're talking about Wyoming deer and Wyoming pronghorn. The only ones left after this are Idaho deer, elk, and pronghorn, and Arizona deer and sheep. So this is it. This is your big chance to get a tag, because the whole focus of this, the series we did this year, was to help you get a tag in 2024. We want you to go hunting, just like our great partners at Go Hunt, who are the ones who ask us to do all these videos. And I'm going to give you the overview of deer and pronghorn, which in a lot of ways is going to be similar to the elk video we did in January. But I always say, if you want the more detail, like the volume, the Encyclopedia Britannica, go out to Go Hunt and sign up as an insider and read their strategy articles. That, along with the draw odds, the maps, the gear shop, everything else is worth every penny of it. And when you use promo code RANDY, they'll put $50 of credit in the gear shop for you. But what's the first thing we always talk about? The deadline. Wyoming never changes their deadline for deer and pronghorn, thank goodness. It is May 31st, 2024, 11:59 Mountain Time, PM. 11:59 p.m. But don't wait till the last minute. Even though Wyoming has one of the better websites, you know what? All those websites can crash if you're one of those procrastinators and you show up at the last minute. If you watched our videos earlier this winter, when we did what's the greatest value by state, you'll see that Wyoming came in number 1 for elk, number 1 for pronghorn, and number 2 for deer. They're doing something right in Wyoming, which is why I think it's one of the best values out there. I love Wyoming, and a lot of people say, well, you're biased because you just live a state away. Well, yeah, I am biased because I only live a state away, but I'm also biased because the hunting is so darn good. They are so fair to non-residents. They have tons of public land, and they manage really well. So I think I've hopefully convinced you that if you are interested in deer and pronghorn, Wyoming should be on your list. The deadline for elk was, like I said, was back in January. So this one, we're covering the May 31st deadline of pronghorn and deer. I want to get on 2 pieces of news. One is old news, one is new news. The old news of last year is still lingering into this year, and that was the winter of 2022-23 was the worst winter Wyoming had in over 50 years, maybe in 100 years. The winter kill that they thought was pretty bad ended up being worse in the areas, kind of that southwest quadrant of Wyoming. We're talking Sweetwater, parts of Carbon, parts of Fremont, Sublette, Lincoln, all those counties down there in the southwest just got smoked. So when I say it's old news, but it's still news, when you look at the quotas for deer and pronghorn in 2024, they're still super, super low. Why? Because of all that winter kill that happened the prior year. The regulations are finalized as of right now. You can go out there and you can see how low these tag numbers are in those units. So now here's the big news for 2024. It is a price increase in the special draw. The regular draw stays the same, but for the special draw, you're going to fall over when I tell you what the new number is for a deer or pronghorn tag. $1,215 plus your application fee plus your 2.5% transaction fee. And you got to front all that. Compare that to the price in the regular draw that has remained the same. $389 for deer, $341 for pronghorn. Where do you think there's going to be a big shift of applicants this year from the special to the regular? Well, those high point holders who could have, you know, they've been sitting on this and they could have drawn any year, they're going to jump over into that regular draw. The point creep we're going to see in the regular draw because of this price increase is off the charts. Now, the flip side of that is if you're willing to pay that kind of money for a deer or pronghorn tag, you're probably going to see better odds over in the special draw. But that's just the way they decided to do it in Wyoming. So pick your poison. Regular draw, probably high point creep, low odds. Special draw, break out your pocketbook for better odds. Now, the upfront cost for Wyoming, you have to front the entire fee for everything. Now, the non-refundable fees are the $15 application fee plus the 2.5% transaction fee. I've already told you what the special price is for deer and pronghorn. It's $1,215 plus your 2.5% transaction fee. For the regular price for deer, it's $389. For pronghorn, $341. And for the youth pricing, if you want that youth pricing, you have to go in the regular draw, and it's $125 for each of them. Wyoming has a point system. It's a modified preference point system, and I'm going to walk through it real quickly. We've been through it many, many times. We did it in January because the elk system, the pronghorn system, and the deer system, it all works the same way. It's just that they have different deadlines and different allocations to non-residents. So, first thing they do in that non-resident pool, they do a split between regular and special. The special, the higher price one over here, gets 40% of that. 60% of it goes over here to the regular. So that's the first thing they do with the non-resident pool that we're applying for. They break it out between the special and the regular. And then they go over here and they conduct the special draw. The special draw, just like the regular draw then, gets broke into two pieces. First, everybody who's chose special goes in a preference point draw. In other words, he or she with the most points gets the tag, and they do that for 75% of the tags. And anyone who didn't draw for that hunt code goes in the next part of the special draw for the random portion, which are 25% of the tags. So everybody goes in the special part of it, or the preference point part of the special draw. And if you don't draw, you get thrown over here into the random, and they disregard points, and it's just a random draw for the other 25%. Then they go over here, they do the same thing in the regular draw. 75% of the tags go over here based on preference points. 25% of the tags are in a second part of the draw, and that's just random. So they go to everybody in the regular and say, all right, here's who all got a tag in the preference. We all go in the preference point part. But anyone who didn't draw there then gets thrown over into the random, and they pull those other tags based on just a pure random lottery. So, pretty simple? No. Pretty complicated, but logical. You can follow it. In Wyoming, less than 20% of the people actually apply for a tag. The other 80+% buy points. Wyoming has a pool of point buyers larger than any other state. And the reason that is they don't make you buy a non-resident, non-refundable license like Utah or Nevada or some of the other states. Come July, I think it's July through October, you can just buy a point. $50 for elk, $40 for deer, $30 for pronghorn. So it's way cheaper to build points in Wyoming than it is in any other state. So what do you see? Every year you see more point buyers. Point buyers. There are people over here on the sideline that don't even show up in the draw odds. And now I'm going to tell you what that pool of point buyers is. For deer, 156,000 non-residents. More than 156,000 non-residents are in their deer system with at least 1 point. And a lot of them have double-digit points. I think this year the maximum is 18 points. Pronghorn's even worse. There's 163,000 non-residents with at least 1 point in Wyoming. And there's 181,000 elk non-residents with at least 1 point. So when you do the math on that, 180,000 times 50, that's $9 million. 156,000 times $40 per point, well, that's about $6.2 million. and then 163,000 people at $30 per pronghorn point. That's about another 4.9 million. Wyoming makes $20 million a year selling points to non-residents, and it doesn't result in one additional animal being taken off the landscape. And I give that as a bit of my own editorial as to, do you think Wyoming's ever getting rid of this non-resident point system? No, they aren't. It'd be like throwing $20 million out the door. So we need to know how it works. Even if I don't like point systems, I need to explain how it works. I need to understand it. I need to understand how it works, but I also need to understand who's over here on the side buying points, and when and why are they jumping in at certain times, and trying to anticipate that. Because when they jump in, especially when tag numbers are going down like they are right now, that amplifies what already has been point creep. So anyhow, I expect a lot of these point buyers, especially in the pronghorn world, and to somewhat the deer world, to jump over into the regular draw where it's way cheaper. They're like, look, I know I got max points or almost max points. I'm going over here. I'm out of here. I'm going to burn my points and I'm out of here. You're going to see point creep, if my crystal ball is correct, at a crazy level in the regular draw this year for both deer and pronghorn. So, short-term options in Wyoming. Well, for me, I say short-term is anything from 0 to 4 years. Now, the region deer tags, even with the lower quotas, you're still probably going to be able to pick up some of those in 0 to 4 points. The whitetail November rut tags, which there's pretty good whitetail hunting in Wyoming, those are 0 to 4 points. And in the pronghorn world, if you're willing to hunt over in the eastern half of the state or the northern part of the state, well, especially the northeast part where access is a challenge, pretty much anything east of I-25 access is a challenge. Those are short-term options, but you gotta solve the access issue. Public land, Wyoming has tons of public land. About 60% of Wyoming is public land, so it's easy to find a place to hunt. In Wyoming, you can hunt state trust land with your hunting license. You can access that, but you can't camp on it. So just know you can be out there hunting, but you better go camp at a campground or on BLM or Forest Service. Wyoming also has this really cool program called PLPW, Private Lands, Public Wildlife. It's where they pay landowners to allow public hunting. And they have two types under there. One is HMAs, which are hunter management areas, and WIHA, W-I-H-A, walk-in hunting areas. They are really, really good programs. Every year when we apply, we make a donation to that program because that program runs mostly on donations. And the quality of the hunting in those walk-in properties in the hunter management areas is excellent. Wyoming, you got to be 12 to apply. If you do the youth thing over in the regular side, you get a discounted price. Hunter education, anyone born after January 1, 1966, you got to have that. You can just buy a point. I told you the deer is $40, pronghorn's $30, and the point purchase period starts July 1st and runs usually until the end of October. Come around the 4th of July, I just go buy the points. I don't even mess with it. Unlike most states, you don't get a point just for failing. They sell a point afterwards. So don't miss that if you're interested in building points in Wyoming. Can you return a tag in Wyoming? Yes, you can, but you're not going to get your points restored. You can surrender your license to the department and they'll issue it to a disabled vet or a person in a wheelchair. If you do have a certified medical issue, they will roll your tag over to the following year, but there's paperwork you got to fill out there. Is Wyoming worth it? Oh, absolutely. If there's only one state in the West that I'm going to apply for, if that's all my budget of time and money allowed, it's probably Wyoming, whether it's deer, elk, or pronghorn. The deer and pronghorn, even though the numbers are way down, the quality of animals are still really, really high. As always, remember the deadline, May 31st. And I'm going to give you a few of my final thoughts on Wyoming. And this is some of my editorial that I talk about all the time, and I thought I need to start putting some of it in these application strategy videos. And that is, we are across the West. When it comes to pronghorn and mule deer, we are in long-term declines. I'm talking 20, 30-year declines. And we got to start doing something about that. We have to figure out what the solution is to put more deer and pronghorn out on the landscape. Elk, you know, they kind of wobble. They're staying pretty steady. Some places slightly up, some places slightly down. But mule deer across the West have seen dramatic declines. Pronghorn across the West, other than Nevada, has seen dramatic declines. So Wyoming's no different. The good old days of pronghorn and mule deer in Wyoming are not today. Mule deer numbers took a hit in 22, 23 in that hard winter, but they were on their way down before then. We're talking chronic wasting disease, cheatgrass, disruption of the sagebrush areas, which is their winter range, energy development, highways, things that are fracturing migration corridors in winter range. It's been a couple decade trend, and it's unfortunate. And I think what has kind of brought it to people's attention is that Regions G and Region H, the two have always been the places in Wyoming that withstood the worst of the worst, were always robust, produced great bucks. Even those are having a tough time right now. Hopefully we'll get out of that with some better winter weather, but we still have the habitat issues. We still have the disease issues. We still have wild horses. We still have cheatgrass. We got a lot of things we got to take care of for mule deer. And the same can be said about pronghorn. When I really started hunting pronghorn in Wyoming in the late 90s, it was crazy how easy it was to get tags, how many animals there were. The Wyoming pronghorn numbers peaked in 2006 at just under 600,000 animals in their best estimate. A lot of people think it was even higher. Well, there were units that today take 4, 5, 6 points that you could get as a second choice in the 2000s. That's how many tags they were giving away because the herd numbers were way up here. Well, by 2013, so just in the course of 7 or 8 years, that number had went from 600,000 to 360,000. It had declined 40%. And since 2013, it's kind of wobbled there depending on winters. And then came the winter of 22, 23, and whoom. And what happens there? To their credit, Wyoming adjusts tag numbers based on the herd and the population. So we are at what I would say in my lifetime, all-time lows for pronghorn numbers in Wyoming. And Wyoming is the capital. It is the epicenter of the North American pronghorn. And if you're like me and you're concerned about that, I hope you'll speak up when the time comes. I hope you will put your time, your talent, and your treasure towards habitat and policies that benefit pronghorn, which usually also benefit mule deer. So anyhow, I love Wyoming. I hate to see the condition that it's in right now because of weather, because of so many other factors, but it's on all of us, residents or non-residents, to fund what it's going to take to put more animals out on the landscape. So anyhow, Wyoming, May 31st, way more details out there at Go Hunt. Sign up using promo code RANDY. They'll put $50 of credit in your gear shop. And if you're going to apply, think out your strategy. They only look at your first choice. Even though they give you multiple choices, for the good units we're interested in as non-residents, make your first choice your best choice. Good luck. Hope you draw a tag this year.